Yes, of course, Max Keiser was right again. Ray Dalio said he would rather own Bitcoin than a bond. Ray Dalio is the manager of Bridgewater Capital, which is the biggest hedge fund in the world, operating out of Connecticut, where he is the #1 taxpayer as well. You said he would find his way to Bitcoin.
That's right. I said he would capitulate. It was guaranteed. And when he started to bash Bitcoin, I said this is a capitulation waiting to happen. It's an interesting statement because he also bashes bonds while simultaneously lauding Bitcoin. So he's another one that's now jumped into the end of the 40-year bull market and bond camp, clearly looking for inflation, clearly looking for bond yields to start going up. That is to say, bond prices going down. And now he understands, as Paul Tudor Jones, his neighbor out there in Greenwich, Connecticut, has said now for a couple of years, if you're trying to get an inflation hedge, the fastest horse in the race is Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that's the remarkable thing. Again, the bond market is something that we've been watching for the entire over 10 years of Keiser report. It's often it is the widowmaker, right? Because it's in the biggest bull market in history for the last 40 years. And so you have Ray Dalio, biggest hedge fund in the world. You have Paul Tudor Jones. You have Michael Burry. You have Stan Druckenmiller all in the past year saying, like, essentially getting to the position where they're shorting U.S. Treasuries, which is remarkable. And this is in response to all the money printing that is going on, that just the historic levels.
Yeah, exactly right. There's an ability of the Fed to monetize that money printing or monetize that debt to a point. And then you get to the end game where confidence in the dollar evaporates and you have a collapse. And so the U.S. dollar is going to go the way of Venezuelan bolivar or other currencies that have suffered hyperinflation. What the price of Bitcoin is telling us right now is that the U.S. dollar is already in a hyperinflationary collapse against Bitcoin, as are all fiat currencies.
So Preston Pysh is looking at this announcement from Ray Dalio that he would rather own Bitcoin than a bond in an inflationary situation, and then now announce that he owns Bitcoin, which is him saying, like, it's time to seek safety. Of course, the issue that we keep on talking about is the price signals and the absence of them, and how the Fed has, claimed they're trying to do good for everybody by destroying the price signals, by massacring the bond vigilantes. So Preston Pysh says, quote, "I'd rather have Bitcoin than a bond." Ray Dalio, sound familiar? CPI is broken, that's Consumer Price Index. QE, quantitative easing, equals asset price inflation. Additional UBI checks, universal basic income, equals even more QE. Because remember, Preston Pysh is the one that pointed that out here on this program. And that he said that the more fiscal stimulus you have to have more QE to balance it out. But also the Fed is buying all of those treasuries, of course, that are the bonds that are being issued in order to feed all the stimulus packages.
Well, as Tom Waits once said, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. And that's where the Fed finds itself right now. It's effectively given itself a frontal lobotomy by performing unending quantitative easing, gutting the underlying economic dynamism of the U.S. economy, and now the country is effectively brain dead. Thank you, central bankers. You killed us.
Well, thank you, Fed, and thank you, ECB, of course. Now, of course, you might look at my elegant gold-laced top and think, that looks like something from luxury maker like Louis Vuitton or something like that. Well, you know what? They are in the headlines, and this is, again, Max was right. You pointed this out, and what's his name?
Jimmy Dore.
No. Bernard Arnault.
Bernard Arnault.
He has become the wealthiest man in the world, overtaking Elon Musk, Bill Gates, all those guys. Jeff Bezos, he's now the wealthiest man in the world. But last year, or a few months ago, when Max pointed this out, Bernard Arnault was only the wealthiest man in France. And, he is the boss at LVMH, which makes all sorts of luxury brands they owned. But, why we knew this was coming, France's richest man gets a free lunch from the ECB. This was back from February 2020, so a little bit over a year ago. And Bernard Arnault, the boss of LVMH, Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton, exceeded even his own incredibly low yield expectations in his company's giant bond sale this week, which included the biggest corporate issue in euros since 2016. The luxury giant raised 7.5 billion euros, which is $8.3 billion at that time, and 1.5 billion pounds, which was $2 billion at that time, over a range of maturities from 2 to 11 years to help finance his $16 billion purchase of Tiffany & Company.
Right, as we pointed out, that the cost for that acquisition is effectively zero. So the European Central Bank gifted Tiffany's, an American luxury goods maker, jewelry maker, to the richest man in the world.
Yes.
And the fact that it's a luxury brand, like it's Louis Vuitton, et cetera, it's so ironic or iconic in terms of we're right back to the incredible neo-feudal times where the aristocracy is taking bubble baths in, extracted snail urine at $50,000 an ounce made by this guy, Bernard Arnault, who gets hundreds of billions of free money from the central bank to perpetuate neo-feudalism. And just like we had the Enlightenment, we have the new Enlightenment with Bitcoin, and just like we had the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Russian Revolution all coming about to end the era of aristocracy a couple of centuries ago, we're getting ready for the new era, the new insurrections, the new revolutions, and Enlightenment and Renaissance 2.0 aided by Bitcoin.